I'm going to show off some new tools I've been making in my game Slumber Realm. So just a quick overview of what's going on. In this game, you have these cards, and you end up drafting new cards. I'll just take this one because it's simple. And then you go into battles, and in those battles, it all takes place in a dream world. So you fight your nightmares. You're kind of a teenager, so maybe you want to fight broccoli. And the basic mechanics here is I have resources. I could spend those resources on these 4 abilities. I'm not going to explain in depth what they do, but this one makes the enemy vulnerable. And then I roll dice. So I roll a single die, and it will match cards that I have. A 3 matches 2 to 6, and matches 1 to 3, but does not match 1 to 2. So my cards attack the enemy attacks me with a die roll and with their cards, and that's the basic idea. You keep doing that, you keep trying to earn resources, use those resources wisely on different abilities. Once you complete the battle, you draft a new card, and that's the basic idea. So the first thing I want to show is this tool. This is a little overwhelming. I'm going to explain some of it. But this is my player content dashboard. So this is just a kind of simple Unity editor thing I built. So here in the overview, this is probably the easiest to understand. What this has shown me at the very top is my overall progress to basically complete the game, to complete all the player content. So the way that works is I have these goals. So I have the amount of content I want on a per class basis. So my game has player classes. I call them aspects. It has 4, and it has a neutral class as well. So I define how many cards do I want each class to have. Memories are they're passive items you get in the game, kind of like relics and other roguelikes. So I could say I want the neutral class to have 20. The neutral class has more content than all the other classes, but you never play the neutral class directly. Anyway, and I could, snacks are also one-time, like potions in other games, one-time consumables. So I could set these goals, and it'll just track my overall progress toward there. And, how many cards do I still need to produce versus memories versus snacks? So I could kind of see how close I am, and even on a per class basis. And then I also have content that is locked in the game initially you need to unlock. So this just shows me how much content I still need to lock. Like here, it shows it really clearly that, and this isn't quite accurate. I need to update this, but it shows me how many equipment I still need to, or how much equipment is locked is what this shows me. So 23 out of 150 are locked. Yeah, this shows me how close or how much more content I need to actually go and make locked in the game, if that makes sense. I need 44 cards that are set aside as locked. Okay, great. So that shows me high level goals, and then I can look at it. This is where it gets really useful. I can look at it on a per class basis. So here, I've been working on the skater recently, so I'm gonna click on the skater. And it shows me that I actually have 2 extra cards in this class. I've produced too many cards in this class. So you can see 22 out of 20 draftable is, I won't explain that, but there's some ways to get cards outside of a draft. So I want 20 that are sort of draftable, but I have to produce 4 more memories and 5 more snacks. So that's really useful to see here, just how much content I need to produce. And then when it comes to produce the content itself, I have all the content listed here. So here are all the cards in the class. It shows me some stats at the top, like I have a day-night mechanic in my game, and I generally want these to kind of be balanced. So I could see that, they're pretty much balanced. And then I can look at each piece of content. So recently I was adding some new cards, and I was able to just quickly see here with all these tags and with day and night and roll values and resources, what I needed to fill out, like what types of cards would still be useful to add. And then these at the bottom are kind of bonus cards. They're not in the draft, but they show up in the market, or sometimes cards can evolve to these cards. And also I could look at passive items, so my memories or my snacks. I could look at all those here as well. So it's just a nice way. I used to export to a spreadsheet, edit in spreadsheet, come back in. So now I can at least see everything here in one spot. There are also ways I could find those assets and select them. So I could, edit those assets really easily from here. So that's my player content dashboard. Pretty useful. I'm just going to dock that right here. The other thing I wanted to show, first let me show a demonstration because it provides some context. So I'm going to go to my bedroom scene. This is a meta progression system in the game that I've been working on. So let me show you what happens when you finish a run and you come back into the bedroom. So I'm going to just use a cheat to simulate that. So here you first earn allowance. So you always earn 5 allowance. And then you just earn cool points. This is temporary UI up at the top, but these points, let's ignore this little prompt right here. This comes up later in the game. But these items in the room, I have a radio and I have a cup of water. I also have Dream Journal and a cork board, but these are kind of special. That's why they're highlighted in pink. But all the items you decorate in your bedroom, they earn you these cool points. So these are pretty basic items right here. They just give you 1 cool point after you wake up. And then I could go into the cork board. And this is a new menu that I've added. Oh, this is just bad luck. I'm going to actually make it so this won't happen because it makes it hard to demonstrate right now. But I'm gonna cheat a little bit just to better demonstrate. So I'm going to do allowance 400. I have a ton of allowance. And I'm going to buy these things right now. So this shows where I could decorate. Let me just clear these out so we could see new things. I'll have a bunch of puzzle cubes all over my room. Okay. So now you can see what it's going to look like more generally. Oh boy, I hope this doesn't crash. I'm going to exit this. I can unlock things here. So I'm going to unlock elite enemies and I can buy things there. So that's a basic idea. And then the things that I buy. So I'm going to advance the journal again. Okay, now these things earn me more cool points. I got 20 cool points from those puzzle cubes. These are really cool. I said this might crash because I have a bug in the Unity editor. It only happens in the Unity editor and only on this machine as far as I could tell. But when I'm in that menu, the editor sometimes crashes. So that's something I'm trying to figure out. But as far as I can tell, it doesn't affect the actual game. So what you can see from that menu is there's kind of things that you unlock at the bottom of the screen, and you need these cool points to unlock those. So there's a lot of tuning with that. So I created another tool. I'll drag over here. This is also a little overwhelming to take in. I'm just going to go to this tab. This tool, I call it the corkboard content dashboard. So that corkboard menu, it's all about tuning content within that menu. So one thing it does is it helps me validate. So these look worse than they are. This is just some data I need to clean up. There's an issue with some of this content is old that's in that schedule. But anyway, and then I could go into the unlock schedule itself. So this shows me, I could look at each batch. There's batches you unlock. So the first 3 things you're offered are this 1 cubicle crisp, elite enemies, and a cardboard time machine. These are cards and snacks and like a game feature called elite enemies that you can unlock. And I can look at the details in there. I could also, there's a simulator I'll get to in a second. I could apply overrides to these values that are not saved yet in game data. They're just for me I could tweak things here in fine detail. And then I could run the simulator and see what outcome that has on the simulator. And then I can apply those overrides to the actual game data. So that's what's going on there. But this is kind of showing costs. Like right here, these values are the costs. And I could override the cost. So like this costs 1 to unlock, this costs 2. I could provide an override is the basic idea. So I could look and I can also edit these batches all within this place here. So that's nice. That's what the unlock schedule is about. Like ultimately you're trying to unlock all this stuff as you progress through the game. I kind of quickly set up this unlock schedule to test the system, and I could already see just looking at it here, this doesn't make sense. Like this should be more evenly distributed. I have all these cards here come to the second half, and I have 2 enemies you only unlock at the very end of the game. I want to create a more even distribution and be more intentional with when players unlock certain things. So also I could have a list of all the decorations. I call them things, but this shows me a list of all the decorations in the game. So it's a nice catalog of just all those decorations. And there's some other context here that I won't get into too much. This is high level tuning of the whole kind of economy. So how many cool points do you start with? How much allowance do you get after completing each run? Things like that. And some other nuanced things. So like this thing level allowance cost is really big. The thing cool income, this is a really big thing that we could tweak that will have an outcome. So I'll go to the simulator. That's probably the most interesting thing. So basically the idea here is I have different strategies. So this is the strategy. I have kind of a AI, but it's in classic A, not like an LLM, but I have an AI that will run through the entire game. It doesn't play individual battles and roll dice. It doesn't do any of that. It just kind of simulates some of that by assuming the player loses this much HP per run on average with some randomization. But then it has a strategy for how it buys things, like what things should it buy in the bit, should it save up, should it, and then what does it unlock. So I have different strategies I've implemented there. You could say how many runs you want. So I've been actually bumping this up to about 140, and how many simulations per strategy. So if I'm doing this balance strategy, it's going to actually run through the entire game, like 140 runs. It's going to do that 100 times. And this is to kind of get aggregate data. And then these values here come from game data that I could tweak elsewhere. Yeah, so there's some other things here. But what I'm going to do is I'll just run the selected simulation. This is easy to grok. So what this did here is it ran a spending strategy of balanced across the whole game. So the outcome here is that we unlocked everything in the game, and it took 103 runs to do that. So that might be something I want to tweak. Like, that might be a lot for what I'm envisioning. Like, do I want players to play that number of runs to unlock kind of the full content? Do I want less? That's something I can think about. I'm also seeing here they didn't have any failed runs. So here I have some values here I could tweak. So here the player skill is at 50%. This just is how much HP they tend to lose per battle. So that's interesting. Like, I feel like they probably should have failed some more runs at a player skill of 50%. So I might look into that after. And it shows me these are the high level values I really care about. So unlocks per run is 0.8 and things per run is 1.1. So my goal is that a player generally after a run, and this is kind of on average, that they will unlock one thing and that they will buy one thing to decorate in their bedroom. So I'm kind of a little under and a little over those values. So that's where I might tweak some things. So we could tweak that now to just demonstrate. This is an easy thing to tweak. I'm going to double all these numbers here. So this is the amount of cool points you earn for your bedroom things, depending on how cool that thing is. So like, there's different levels of cool things. This is probably so hard to comprehend on Reddit, but I really like this stuff, so I'm gonna keep going. So I'm gonna run this simulation again. Let's look at these two numbers. Unlocks per run, 0.8 and 1.1. Great, so now I have unlocks per run, 1.1, and things per run, 1.0. So that's actually pretty right on with what I want. I might want to tweak those things a little bit. There's this elite aggression thing. This is how aggressively players face elite enemies. In practice, I have it like 70% of the time they choose to take the elite enemy. Real players might be more conservative. They might be, I don't know, 40%. How does this affect our strategy? Now look, this, this is interesting. So now there's a lot of failed runs. 58. I don't know why tweaking that would cause failed runs. I need to look at my logic. But this also lowers the amount of things per run, because the thing with the elite enemies is when you face the elite enemy, you get bonus allowance. So that's how it factors in the economy. Facing the elite enemies is more challenging, but you get all sorts of rewards for doing so. But you might lose more HP as a result too. So there's a balance to that. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. There'd be more failed runs because you are facing elite enemies. Elite enemies are more difficult. You tend to lose more HP, especially if your player skill is not super high. If we were to put player skill higher, then that should... Yeah, now I have no failed runs, because my player skill is really high. It's 91%. So this is where, like, I'm trying to tune for all players in a sense. So I want to tweak these values such that you're generally getting one unlock per run and one thing per run. Not like no matter what, but so here we can see if your player skill is really low, these values go down. Things per run goes down quite a bit. So it's just a matter of like tweaking the values so that you could account for the broadest set of players regardless of player skill. You will still want player skill to be important, but you don't want to disadvantage a player who's not as good by a huge amount. So anyway, these tools help me think about how a player is going to go through the run and do this with like actual data and simulations. Of course, there's nuance when a real player starts playing a game. I need to test this, but it's hard to test these things because this is a full unlock schedule. So if this is a 140 runs someone is playing, that's a lot of time. I can't expect a bunch of playtesters to spend that amount of time just to give me this type of data. So that's why I want to do a pass with a tool like this, that it could at least put me in the right ballpark, so that I'm giving a player something that is close to right. It might not be perfect. It probably needs a lot of tuning still, but it's better than if I were just completely guessing without a tool like this. The last thing I'll do here, I don't think I've shown this yet. I'll put these values up to just 50-50. Anything else I want to change? I'll go back to the tuning. I'll set these back to the default values where they were, just so I have a baseline. And now I'm going to do this compare aggregate. So this takes a little bit of time to run. So what it's doing is it's running through every strategy. I think there's 5 strategies, and it's doing 100 runs. No, 100 simulations. I have to think of the right word. It's doing 100 simulations for each strategy, and each simulation includes up to 140 runs. So it's just doing a bunch of calculations here to get aggregate high level data. So let's see what it outputs here in a second. Okay, great. So aggregate strategy comparison. This shows me each strategy. It turns out the strategies don't have as big an impact as I thought they might after I run the calculations. This save for next unlock is clearly the worst strategy, but the outcome is generally the same. So you could see here, this is the unlocks per run, and purchases are the things. T is for things, the decorations per run. I can also click on any of these individually, and down here it shows me the more in-depth result for each of the strategies. But it's a way that I could compare the strategies at a high level. I could try tweaking the strategies too, because I do wonder if some of these things would have a bigger impact. I'm kind of surprised they don't, but I don't know. Maybe it makes sense. And then I can also go down and I can look at, this is looking at individual runs within the simulation. So I could see at every kind of turn what happened. What did the AI decide to buy? Well, decide, it's kind of random, but how many cool points were earned, how much HP they lost. Lost 12 HP across 5 battles. So I can look at it in depth. This is useful for debugging, just to verify that this whole thing was working. It's like a log of what happened. Yeah, so that's the basic system. I put it all together. I've just started to kind of tune things now. I think a lot of my time will be spent in this menu, actually, just tweaking this unlock schedule to get this into a sensible place. And yeah, that's all I have to share. So hopefully that was interesting or useful or something, but feel free to ask questions.